welcome to this, our final session of the UNISA ESD program for 2023. We've been through a number of engagements. Some of them you were able to attend, some of you couldn't attend and went online. And this one we are going live, purely live without any audiences. But the whole journey has been about us and UNISA specifically as the ESD program facilitators to help you start thinking about different parts of your business. Today, we've shifted it slightly, and we're looking at the role of you as the individual and as the business owner. And that's why we've invited Dr. Matentjie, who I'm in no doubt many of the things she's going to share with us are going to leave you thinking and hopefully inspired to act differently. Dr. Matentjie, thank you for joining us to come in and share some of your wisdom with us. Really, really appreciate it. I think that maybe just as a way of giving a bit of context for you, as a recap, especially that it happens at the end of the year, we'll use this conversation as a wrap-up of the ESD program, where what we've been asked to do is facilitate workshops or conversations really with a number of people for those who are participants of the UNISA ESD program. And just maybe for your own benefit, we've had a number of people. Some have come and spoken about financial management. We've had a couple of people talking about strategy and business development and growth. We've had conversations about, which was for me one of the highlights, was bringing in people to talk about the real hard knocks that they've experienced as they're building their businesses. Because I think that what we've tried to do is not focus too much on the glamour and rather focused on the reality of what it is to start and build a business. In our initial conversations, which is what really got me excited, and I'm so glad you've made the time, we spoke about the mindset. And I think that that's what's something I'd like us to kind of explore a little bit better. For the benefit of our viewers, I'm not going to go off and say this is Dr. Matentjie and I'd like maybe for you to just, kind of reflect on your journey from as far back as you want or as recent as you want. But if I had it my way, I would say let's start from university. Very briefly, kind of like, and I mean, I know that this is a space you're very passionate about, but it would help, I think, for our viewers if you could just share some of what your journey has been about.
Sure. I always never know how to answer that question. And I often change it to be what I want to say.
You're welcome to you can do it like that.
But whenever I do work, very often in my introduction, I like to tell people why I do what I do and how I got to do what I am doing. Yeah. I'm a psychologist and I've studied a lot of things, but my passion and why I get involved in these types of programs is that I regard myself as a personal change catalyst. I find that I meet people at their moment of crisis. And I think that is usually how I enter their lives, and I work through them a journey of personal reengineering. From understanding what are the different things that are contributing to that moment of crisis, and maybe it's not a moment, it's an entire lifetime of crisis, to getting them to realize all of the different parameters that shape and define that crisis, and how much of it has to do with the past, how much of it has to do with what's currently happening, and then going forward, what they want to create in their lives. So as a result, I work with kids, I work with families, I work with adults. And with adults, I work with them in different spaces, whether through their companies as part of corporate wellness, employee wellness, or as part of what companies do in terms of developing brands and reaching disadvantaged or disenfranchised communities and around those types of programs, or whether in terms of mentorship and coaching coaching work that they're doing for whoever the constituents are. So I find that I'm very, very versatile. But the core of what I do is education.
Right.
And as a result, most of my work is about educating people. But that comes because of, I come from Mamelodi, the dusty streets of Mamelodi, before there was tar road in Mamelodi. And when you were different and you were struggling with whatever challenges you were having at home, there was hardly ever anyone to speak to help you navigate those areas where you were stuck. And one of the things I'm passionate about and why I do education and why I do these types of platforms is that even if you're not able to afford to come and see me, I want you to know that you'll be able to gain access to the types of services, the types of support we offer. And in whatever environment you are in, learning takes place anywhere. It's not just limited to go school or at school or to whatever it is, a course that you are attending. Learning happens anywhere. And part of what you learn is that for as long as you are invested in developing, in growing, whatever the challenges that you're facing, they're actually a precursor to you getting that breakthrough to get into the next level in your development. And so my job, my passion is about facilitating that for people. Hence, we're having the conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just for your benefit, Nay, let me describe in my mind the type of person. It's a range of people, but just in kind of simplistically, those who are participating in the ESD program are people who some would have been employed previously. They would have left employment out of choice, some, and then there's some who would have left because, as you probably would know, the last 4 years have been actually a very, very tough economic time. I think that what sometimes gets lost is that COVID actually caught us when things were already starting to, the wheels were starting to come off. I mean, I say this because I realized that a lot of companies were on a very quiet job attrition path. And so some of these people would have then gone off and started their businesses in what has become a very and even more difficult time. Okay? And then there are those who would have decided that being employed is not appealing. And that could be a range of factors. One could be, I've graduated and I actually can't find a job. Or I've graduated and I've decided that I'm going to go and start my own businesses. So in the main, just so that we're on the same page, that's the type of people that would have and are part of this program. What I want us to explore, Dr. Matentjie, is the idea of the way of thinking that people, or the way of thinking coming into something as different as your own business, as opposed to the way of thinking when you are gainfully employed. Because I think that those are actually two very different animals. And I know when we were chatting, you indicated that you are increasingly coming across this animal that's called a business owner. And you're starting to work through unpacking just some of the internal thoughts that need to come along. Would you mind just elaborating on and reflect on your engagements and what you're picking up, and then I'll keep asking as you're speaking.
I think whatever the circumstances, and I think when we were speaking, preparing for the session, we said that you are finding that the people who are participating in the program, they may be coming into the program in order to do what they need to do so that they can procure work, they can get services.
That's correct.
But the program is much bigger. It's intended for much more than that. And this part of the conversation is to sort of maybe even plant a seed to get you to look internally, just introspect a bit about, irrespective of the circumstances that made you want to become a business owner.
Right.
What was your purpose? What was your why for wanting to run your business. Whether you identified a niche because you've been working in the field, you know the industry well enough, and you find that there's this need, I've got the skill set and I'm going to align and then offer it, and then that's going to be how I make my living, or whether because of you were unemployed. So go and find your why. But the journey for you to define the why becomes important because of the moment where you conceptualize that you want to start your business. You are a specific kind of person. If you've been employed, you are used to seeing your professional identity, your values, your practices, your emotions, and how you define success and what the results are that shows that you've achieved those whatever milestones you have are very different to when you are now a business owner, especially with people that are your employees.
Yes.
And with families and other dependents that are now looking up to you to be the one who brings the bacon, holds the family together, and whenever there's challenges to be able to navigate so that financially everything is secure. So I've been seeing people who, yes, they've started their own business. The why they started it, maybe it might not be clear all the time, or maybe it is, but the circumstances under which they come, hence the conversation we're having, is that they are experiencing a lot of adversity. They are at a place where, yes, they want procurement, yes, they want the business, yes, they are seeing what other people are doing, but they are struggling to stay on course and navigate the choppy waters, and then even to believe in themselves, or even to inspire faith in their family members, in their clients, in whatever groups of people they need support from, so that they hold fast, the center holds to navigate through these choppy waters to get to the other side. And more often the feedback they get is that it's like they're crazy. It's like, you're saying there's a deal, you're talking to so-and-so, you're doing this, you're doing that. But the point is that the day-to-day, there's no bread, the school fees that needs to be paid, the demands are not there. And then that existentialist crisis comes up.
Yes.
So very often, I meet people when they are there. And the conversation, I hope, is that when people are listening, and if you're identifying with yourself that, okay, yes, it is because I'm in this moment of crisis where now I'm questioning who I am, or the people around me are questioning what I am doing and why I'm doing it, and if it's going to yield the results that I say it's going to yield. I am even beginning to doubt myself. So then how do I recalibrate? How do I realign myself so that I don't detract too far away from what I said I wanted to do, even if that has evolved, or I don't violate my own values and my own principles to end up doing things that actually might give me momentary relief and money, but long term they erode who I say I am and the values that I adhere to and what I say I want to do going forward with my business. And then thirdly, what are the types of conversations that I need to be having with the people in my network? Do I need to go outside? Who do I need to be aligning with? So that even when I lose faith and I lose motivation and I am even questioning why I'm doing it, I've got people who are able to remind me and they know how to show up for me so that I don't lose sight of it. Right?
So can I interject now? I mean, I'm hearing you talking about the importance of the why, right? And I'd love, if you can, to just reflect on that, why it's important for the why.
So we know, I think in the news and in our conversations when we're talking as individuals, we begin to talk about how people get involved in corruption.
Yes.
How they get involved in things that really do not make sense. It's like a get rich quick scheme.
Yes.
And it defies logic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we know that the results of where people forget the why and how they can end up on the wayside, on the wrong side of the law, or get involved in things that completely derail them and you ruin your reputation. And so you can never recover because you lost sight of the why, and then it became about just getting the money, any means necessary to getting the money. So the why becomes important in terms of not making you lose sight of who you are while you're doing it, and not let other things that are opportunities, they might look like it's a temporary relief, but you end up going there and then it derails you. I'll give you an example. When I started in my practice, it was a passion of mine. It was a decision I was intentional about. I want to make people access my services even if they can't come to my practice. So going on the radio, going on TV, it was a decision to get the people who are Mamelodi to access what I am doing. They don't have to pay the amount of money they need to pay to come and see me. So that was one of my reasons to go on TV and radio. And I remember as you become popular and people know about you, you are invited now. You're no longer applying. You are invited to come and do different types of work.
Right.
And I remember someone actually saying, I went to school with your mother. Your mother used to sit in front of me in the classroom. Actually, I knew your mother when she was pregnant with you, so practically you are my child.
Yes.
That felt good, yes? Because I don't have a lot of people who would say that about me and about my mom. And this person proceeds to say, there is this work, and we know you can do it. I just need you to give me something. I care we are family. It didn't sound like a bribe. And maybe I was too naive to think that somebody who knows my mom would dare to say, I must pay something as a psychologist so that I get something. Because I went to school, I've proven that I can do this.
Yes.
Right? And then I remember who I am.
Yes.
I remember why I am doing what I am doing. But then there's this disbelief. Did she really just say that?
Yes.
And then I call one of the people that I consider a mentor, a family member who's run their practice. They're also in the healthcare professionals, who says to me, Tshepi, it's okay if you think you need the work. You can do this work. You know what you're doing.
Yes.
But that thing of, Akere, you're getting this, we are family.
Yes.
You will begin to pay a little. Because all you think is that, no, it's about the work.
Yes.
But you are not seeing how that already creates a loophole in eroding your values and detracting you from what you said you want to do. You agree, a couple of years later, you are on air doing what you love, and somebody says, I am a caller. This person who sings this, they are there because of me. They are owing me this, or I made them who they are. And you're thinking, no, but I did the work. And they say, no, but you got it because of me. And right then and there, you're involved in corruption. But at the moment where you were solicited, it didn't look like you were being enticed to get involved in shady, illegal work.
Yes.
That frightened me. So the why becomes important, because even when certain things don't look like they are detracting you from what you're doing, when you keep checking in with yourself about why you're doing what you're doing, it's not just the moment of crisis that help you to recalibrate and face your true north. It is also things that might look like you are being derailed. It looks like there's a bigger opportunity there. But then because you're not careful in checking in with yourself regularly, you don't have that discipline, you end up being sidetracked. And you end up doing other things that are not part of your core business. And this is something that I say a lot with people who are business owners. You end up getting involved in other ventures.
Yes.
But they're not really your core business. They're not even aligned with your skills and your competence. You're now spreading yourself too thin. So that's why the why is important.
So it's an anchoring. That's what I'm hearing you say. Now, if I can ask, I would imagine that two people who decide that they're going to go into construction, their reason and their whys for having chosen to be in that industry would be different.
Yeah.
Surely, right? So this is not, just to check with you, it's not as if there's no template, there's no, because your reason for doing what you're doing is about what, your internal reasons, right?
Yeah.
So am I correct in saying that? So in a sense that this why is a very personal, you arrive at it having reflected. And it's different for different people.
Yes, it is. And by the way, it isn't just only about your internal reasons. As we said, for example, you might find that you've been working in the industry and you realize that there's a gap.
Yes.
You've done your homework, you know this business in and out, and there's this gap and nobody's offering it. And even if they are, you don't want to be like them. You know who you are and how your value proposition would set you apart from other people.
Yes.
So there is an external thing, and there's an alignment between that which you are seeing as a gap, and then it becomes your niche and how your skill set, your personality, and your values and whatever else that you are bringing creates that alignment and allow you to position yourself.
Yes.
So that might be your why.
Yes.
So it isn't just about an internal intrapersonal process.
Got you.
You also have to be mindful that if it stays only at an internal level, when you are in those moments of crisis where business is not businessing,
Yes.
and the results are not coming in,
Yes.
and you are finding that your spouse, your family are saying, but you've been at it, we don't see the results.
Yes.
Even you are aware that I've been at this, but there's no results.
Yes.
And I need to pivot, I need to change, I need to do something. If you keep only staying internal, that is where a lot of people then begin to struggle with mental health, because you are beginning now to think it must be a me problem. It must be me. I must be inadequate. Maybe I was wrong, or maybe I'm not good enough. Why is Tshepiso doing it and I can't? You do that internal comparison because you start thinking that the flaw is with you. And you see a lot of business owners struggling with depression, struggling with anxiety. And you find that quite a lot of them, they don't even realize why they don't believe in themselves as much as they used to when they started. They lose that urge, that drive, because you keep going in to see what is it about me that is misaligned, when in fact, no, you are aligned, but there's things in the environment externally. The economy is different.
Yes.
And you are personalizing and internalizing something that has nothing to do with you. The economy is just bad.
Yes.
And yes, maybe you do need to expand, diversify, or pivot.
Yes.
But it does not mean it detracts you from your true internal why.
Correct.
So you need that balancing act to not just go internal, but also survey your environment. You need to tap into what other industry people are doing, so that you're constantly appraised and you are having people who are mentoring and guiding you. They can tell you how the lay of the land is happening, so that you are always having that balance. And so it becomes important that when you are in this journey, you have a mentor.
Yes.
Somebody who might not be in your field of expertise, but they may be out, but they can listen to you. They can also be listening to you with that thing, oh, I didn't know that. They're curious, so they're listening to you with clear mind, clear ideas, because whatever you're sharing them, you are teaching them as well. But then they also need to be able to be willing to go and learn, so that when they're engaging with other people, they are able to bring input to you, so that they are able to add value to you, show you a different perspective. So having a mentor becomes important. Attending these types of programs, not just to get procurement, to get your name out there, but to learn how you need to shift as an individual, but also how you need to position your business in order to move forward, so that you're not just being told shift because people are seeing how great you are. You also see the opportunities, and then you keep reinventing and growing where you're going. And then finally, it helps you when you keep having that internal, external mediation and balancing and checking in of yourself. Because a lot of businesses we know, they struggle because they stop evolving. So in the beginning, you are firing on all cylinders. You've got all these brilliant ideas. You've got all this knowledge. When you're coming in, you're inspiring people. But because you stop being creative and evolving, you miss how Tshepiso somewhere has done what you're doing, and they've already continued to evolve and try new things. So you are not even able to respond and reinvent. And then so you start losing people, because yes, you were great in the beginning, 5, 10, 15 years ago. But now as things are changing, you haven't evolved. People change. Your client has changed. So now you need to be positioning yourself differently. So if you're not also checking what's happening in your environment, in the industry, you might find that you're missing out, right? So it becomes important then to also not do it only in isolation. So having a network of people, having a community where you're also learning from other industries becomes important.
I'm with you. So so I'm picking up, right, that this why, as you say, and you quite clearly communicate that is a combination of the internal and the environment that you're looking at, right? So now I want to slightly go on it, but they're linked. Slight digression, Dr. Matentjie. So, starting a business in a normal economy, when things are moving nicely, is tough. I mean, the stats are that a vast majority of business owners at some point actually just say, we're walking away. That's in a normal economy. Now, we've agreed that the last 5 years have been really, really, really tough. How do people, because it's in a way I'm segueing into the second part that I wanted for us to chat about, which is, because from what I'm seeing, and I think you also intimated to it, there are a lot of people who are facing crises right now. There are people who would have, as I described them, they would have left their employment, let's say, just before COVID. decided that they're going to use some of their pension money, as an example, to invest in this business. And let's use this as a hypothetical example. And now they're at a point where they have depleted their reserves. Okay? And the reality, as you touched on, is that there's school fees to be paid. There is the car mortgage, the house mortgage, all these things that were there before the person, while they were gainfully employed. How does one, and I'm asking you as a psychologist in this thing, how do you navigate such crises?
It's not going to happen overnight, but it's doable.
Okay.
Which means even if you say, okay, I'm committing to doing something about it and I want to navigate it, you don't go for one session and think it's fine. You don't go to one program or one session with your mentor and then thinks it's fine. But it has to do with you acknowledging that it's going to be a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And it does require that you become very honest about where you are in time chronologically, who you are right now, and how you are being called upon to show up very differently and you are found wanting. I'm phrasing it this way because a lot of people begin to internalize and think, I am the problem. And maybe when in your squabbles with your partner, they will tell you that you are a dreamer, or no, you need to go back to work, in the way that personalizes it and makes it, you feel it damages your self-esteem. But where you are, it is requiring for you to reinvent, re-engineer. And that is something that an ordinary person under ordinary circumstances facing whatever crisis would struggle with. Because if where you are, you have tapped out in terms of what is within your arsenal to restructure, reconfigure, re-engineer, that means you need professional help. It doesn't mean you are crazy. It doesn't mean that you are mental. It just means where you are, with the resources that you have, you need professional help. So I cannot overemphasize the value of having, for example, a life coach, going for therapy, because it's interesting how just the shift in how you see you in the now and what you need to grow, where you need to develop, what are the new things that you need to learn. And it might be as simple as you asking for help.
Got it.
You admitting that I don't need to have the Mercedes and we don't need to stay in the suburbs. We just need to downsize. Yes. And I'm going to be okay with people laughing at me that I'm no longer drinking a specific brand of whiskey. I'm going to be okay. And I need my kids and the people around me to be okay with it. And I need my mom, who keeps asking for monthly things to pay for whatever, to know that I'm no longer in that position. So that loss of identity that I thought is part of my success and my respect and my worth in the family has shifted. Now I'm going to redefine what worth, success, and respect is. If that's what it takes, that you might find that once you shift that perspective, things start moving, other possibilities open up. So that's the first thing. Acknowledge where you are. Acknowledge that you are tapped out in terms of everything else that you've tried, and you've done all the right things and you are doing all the right things, but there's no shift. Let me get professional help. And those conversations are not just going to be about business. That's the second thing. We actually take you as far back as your childhood, because you can not believe how much of the things that are challenging right now that create blockages in your adulthood have a lot to do with where you come from, your origin, your story of origin. And you find that when people are in crisis, they default on earlier coping strategies or defense mechanisms. But they are no longer working now because the environment is shifted, the time has shifted, the demands are shifted. But you are using all methods that used to work when you were a child to cope with a situation that requires for you to show up differently. So very often when there's blockages, it's because of you've resorted to what used to work, or the defense mechanisms or the coping strategies that used to work, but they are no longer working because now you are different. The situation calls for different things. So we will take you there. And you need to stay the course, because if I am meeting you when you're 49, do you understand that it's like 40 plus years of understanding you and then unlearning new things? So there are certain things you're going to have to unlearn. And you need to recognize how they are now showing up in this business that you are doing, in how you're dealing with your clients, in how you're dealing with problems, in how the habits that you are cultivating every day, right? The emotions that get triggered, and how when they're triggered, how you resort to certain behaviors. But your mindset as well. What are the things that you are thinking that keep trapping you into that way of behaving? Or maybe you have begun to change, but the people around you don't know. And so they do not know how to deal with this new version of you. And so they don't know how to realign. So then you must then educate them. So you find that we're going to do therapy with you and take you back there where you begin to recognize those patterns, where you need to change. And then when you are okay, if you get there on your own and you start cultivating the change, you've left other people behind, because there's a part where you need to teach other people to acclimate to the new you and where you want to go. So you find that your spouse, your kids, your mother, the other people, your employees now need to be aware of how the lay of the land has changed, how they need to support you. Because this new version of you requires conversations in the bedroom pillow talk to be different. And if your wife or your spouse is not aware that, okay, me asking, so what are we doing about the budget, creates anxiety for you. But we need to talk about the budget because the school fees need to get paid. What are people going to say? What are the people at the church going to say? And you're not making them aware that, look, you are actually contributing to the dis-ease that I have. If you want to be part of the health and the wellness, and if you want us to align to where we're going, let's have different conversations. And that needs to happen. So you find that when we're doing the journey to change it, to break through, we end up doing family therapy because it isn't just about you. You're not alone. You're not a silo. All right. And why we end up getting involved in companies and doing teamwork, it's because even the culture in the organization needs to change. We're not just working with you. You're not existing in a silo, like I said. So there's an entire system. There's an entire network that also needs to shift with you. And you are just one person. Putting it all on your shoulders is too much. So then you end up organizing, working in the organization as well, working with people so that they also move with you in terms of where you need to go.
So what I'm hearing, if I can test this, is that when you are in that moment of crisis and things, you're feeling stuck, what I'm hearing is that the one thing that you could do a disservice for yourself is to not, and I'm going to use the word brutally honest, is to not be brutally honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because unless you can be honest and brutally honest with yourself, you then can't be honest with others around you who have expectations that oftentimes are quite unrealistic relative to the reality of where you are
at that time. Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
And I'm hearing you saying, let's say I get the person who then is able to come and tap into your expertise, right? So let's say then there's the person who really does not even have the means to go and engage the services, right, of a psychologist. But what I'm hearing you saying is that the one thing you have to do is to be brutally honest with yourself about where you are, okay? Because it's in that point then you can start thinking about what the options are. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay? So let's say then, and I'm going to kind of just keep bouncing it off you. So you've gone through this process, you've helped this person to unpack. What I find fascinating, Dr. Matentjie, is that, and I think that we don't do enough of it, right, is we tend to think of the business as an external organism that's happening. And we don't actually think about you as the person, which is what you're really actually saying, on how you are showing up. The reflection that is required, the lessons that you can glean from the last project that didn't go well, or the project that you did that went very well, and then they're actually key your set of toolkits that you can now develop for yourself, that you know, this is where I'm very good, this is where I'm not very good. So, do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Your thoughts on what I'm touching on?
So when people sometimes do the reflection, they will tell you, what are the challenges, whether external or internal, that they are facing. So we become very good as part of the reflective exercise at problem exploration. And that is just the first part. problem exploration in terms of you talking about, okay, now I'm being honest. Actually, most of my problem is that I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at selling myself. Okay. And then why are you not good? Oh, it has to do with the fact that I was not confident. People apparently say I'm arrogant or whatever. And so I try to damn down. And then we talk about that psychology. Be mindful that all we have done is explore the complexity, the nuances of the problem. And sometimes it might take us years. Because other things keep coming up. Reality of the now and how it's triggering stuff in the past, or new things are coming up, but there's a pattern to it. But all we've done is problem explanation. Okay. Be mindful that the change happens. Yes, you've been honest with yourself. We've explored the problem. You've dug deep. We've seen the history and now and all the different factors that are the parameters that are impacting things. For us to move to solution focused is a different journey. It needs a new you to show up. A new you who's not so invested in the old you and the problems they had, but a new you that is willing to commit and formulate where she wants to go and what she will need to be able to make it there. And you can call this, whether it's meditation, whether it is prayer, but you are taught the same thing, that change doesn't happen until you begin to formulate where you want to go and live as if that change has already manifested. Gotcha. So who I want to be, where I want to get, I need to spend time as well investing in what will it look like. If ever I now say, if I could get this deal, things will be fine. Really? With your current spending habits. With the way that you are when you go home on the holidays. With your family still doing the same thing, you'll come back here again. So we know that for the business to continue changing and evolving and for you to keep reinventing and have this empire that you want to build, you're going to have to begin to shift in certain things. So part of exploring where you want to go and who you will need to be, how your attitude will need to change, how your habits will need to change, how the things that emotionally trigger you, that we need to resolve them so that you're no longer triggered. Yes, the triggers will still be there, but they're only triggers in as far as they elicit those emotional responses and then result in the habits that you used to have in the past, the defense mechanisms and the coping strategies. So you need to learn new habits. And then we start cultivating those. And no matter what the challenges are, even if it's still taking too long, you begin to live as if the change has already happened. And for a lot of people, they struggle. That's why they fall off the wagon because they keep going back to what the problems were and the change that it requires for you to do new things and stay on course requires too much energy. Because you keep being reminded, but the change is too little. But what about this problem? There's a new problem. And then you stay in problem exploration, and then the victim mindset comes up.
Got it. Okay. Which then leads to the next part now of, in fact, towards the end of our conversation, Dr. Matentjie, which is, so there's this problem exploration, and what are the tools? I guess that's what I'd like us to really kind of explore. What should these business owners who are wanting to build businesses in what is clearly a tough economic environment with dynamics where there are expectations from family members that are actually quite unrealistic relative to their circumstances. What are the tools that you would recommend? What are the things that, these people that are on this program should be giving thought to?
I've heard you mention from the business side the type of tools you've given them.
Yes.
And I've heard you, and I mean, I think if people are going to be honest with themselves, where you are found, for example, to be lacking or weak in your financial management systems, you will be told these are the things you need to implement. One of the examples is that you need a new way of tracking your resources.
Correct.
Right? Expenditure and minimizing your risk or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine. What it does mean is that, okay, now I need to start changing my systems and implementing the new ideas that I've been given, isn't it? Correct. So thinking about it and saying, yes, I will, and procrastinating does not result the change in the financial management systems that you say. So we've taught you. Now you know what you need to do. All that needs to happen is that you now need to behave according to what you're saying you need to do, the change that you're desiring. And over time, you do it enough times, you'll ultimately have completely revamped your financial systems. If that makes sense, give like a financial systems, which I know nothing about.
Yes.
Your psychology is the same.
Got it.
So we actually take it down, all right, this is where you say you want to go. Within you as an individual, your thoughts, the conversations you have with yourself, the things that you believe they need to shift, and what do they need to be? Let's formulate that.
Right.
All right? These are the habits, the behaviors, the actions, the activities that you need to be able to do. What are they? In order for you to achieve that goal now and start working towards it. So to begin your journey of 1,000 miles, what are the things that you would need to do differently? So that from today you start doing them. And then what are the things that you need to be able to do in terms of emotionally? They give you that energy, that spark. They energize you and get you to focus so that you are constantly intrinsically motivated to keep at it. Right?
Right.
That might mean I stop hanging out with Masedi on the weekends because all he does is tell me about how well he's doing and I feel inferior. So whatever it is that we speak about would mean that certain things you start culling, you start cutting things that no longer serves you. And you're going to have to be just as brutally honest, just like you had to in admitting what you can't do. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to be brutally honest in severing the things that no longer serve you and choosing not to go there. And then we're going to have to say, these are the behaviors that I need to be able to do on a daily basis. What does that look like for me? What does that look like for the other people in my inner circle? Because part of being solution focused is to also recognize what is it within our network and how the people in our network will need to start also encouraging that change, that growth. If you think you're going to do it on your own, you will fail. Because if the people around you don't understand where you're going and what their part is, what their role is, it's gonna be daunting and overwhelming. So you need to bring them with you. And you don't need the whole village. You need one or two people who understand you. You don't need to convince people of what you're doing. The one or two are okay, because then you know who I go to get the support. The others can continue saying what they're saying, and then you can mediate or control how much you expose yourself to it. But you need cheerleaders with you to allow you to stay on course. And you do need also to have what is called self-compassion, where you realize that you are not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to fall a couple of times, and it is okay. And you need to forgive yourself for certain things. You're going to fall, and that's fine. As long as you are learning and you keep thinking, okay, how do I correct? How do I come up with another plan? Who do I speak to? For as long as you continue with the fight, that's fine. It is not the moments of failure and doubt and fear that we worry about. Those will happen anyway. Everybody has them. Even Elon Musk has them. It is what you do afterwards, how you correct, that becomes the point. So we talk to people about having a growth mindset. And just having the audacity of hope, refusing to give up. And because you know who you are and what you are capable of, you continue to choose to rise and correct. And then finally, I believe that one of the tools that people need to look at is that we often speak about the challenges, the traumas that we've gone through. And even when you're talking about the business, because we've done a lot of problems exploration, you're able to tell people off the top of your head what you've done that has failed, what didn't work. And then you're very good at analyzing the problems and even telling other people what problems they have. But people are not very good at celebrating their successes. And I don't mean buying whiskeys and impressing people or building your own harm, your own drum. I mean actually acknowledging the things that make you resilient, the things that make you bounce back. What are the things that you do that when you tap into them, whether as an individual or as somebody who inspires other people, make you know that I can do this? Because an entrepreneur has to believe in their resourcefulness, their resilience, their capacity to be elastic. And it's that actually that keeps you going. And people might say, oh, you're crazy, because they can't relate. But that's because they were not there during the tough times. So when you look back, try to remember what are the things that made you thrive, that made you bounce back, that made you be resilient, that made you dig deep and actually realize, no, I can. I don't need everybody to believe in me, but I know I can. That's why I'm doing this business. And those types of things allow you to keep at it over and over again, to keep rising no matter what.
I don't know that there's any more that needs to be said in it, to what we've just chatted about. I mean, I think that this conversation will need to be listened to over and over again, because they're immense pearls of wisdom of what you have said. What for me comes through very, very strongly, which I really, really appreciate, is that there's work to be done on the self. This is what I'm taking out of this conversation. There's work to be done on the self, and as you cautioned, not just looking at the internal, but also balancing with the external. I mean, I don't know how else to say thank you for what you've just shared. And I mean, I'm going to watch this again and listen to this conversation again, as I guess I will encourage everybody that's going to watch, because what you're saying is so pivotal, Dr. Matentjie, and I thank you for making the time, and thank you for sharing your wisdom such that it reaches an audience bigger than the people that you would have an opportunity to sit with. So thank you very, very, very much.
It's an absolute privilege. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope it makes sense.
It makes any... So let me, if I can, just indulge me. You know, you made the example of the transition, because I think that that's one of the things for me that I recognize is when you're transitioning out of being employed, and you know, what success looks like is very different to when you then go out and you're going to start something
On your own, yeah.
Because there's no way that when you're in building a business, you can now evaluate success on the same basis as when you were earning an income and able to then acquire or purchase or look after them. There's a change, and it requires an honest and brutal conversation with those around you. As you're saying, that maybe now I must give up on that very fancy car. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. But to go off and then, and I see why you're saying, that's why I think if I try and reflect on it, I'm just going to water it down. I want to thank you, and I look forward to the feedback for those who will be watching, who are watching us, and I thank you very, very much. I really, really mean it.
It's a pleasure.
Dr. Matentjie,
Yeah.
Thank you once again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So we've been on a journey this year, and I think that the way we've ended it with Dr. Matentjie is probably the best way, because there's a balancing act to be done. I hope that you found the sessions that we've held and that we've hosted, and the questions that some of the people in attendance were asking, I hope you found that valuable and fruitful. I challenge you, based on what we've been discussing, to go and think through the many things that Dr. Matentjie was saying, to reflect on some of the steps. As she correctly says, it's one thing to identify that there's a problem. It's one thing to know that there's something you need to do. The challenge really then is, how does that translate in the new you who's in pursuit of new goals? Look after yourselves, and may you strive and keep pushing to make your business flourish. Thank you very much.